So there's something bubbling under the surface ever so slightly in America, and it's to do with the financial system and the banks. Now, Jerome Powell said that he was starting to bring the quantitative tightening to an end, which means he's going to start printing money very soon. And what he's done is he's sucked the liquidity out of the repo market, or basically the money that he injects into the economy for the banks for lending and all such as that. He's been reducing it down and reducing it down. The UK have been doing it and everybody's been doing it the same. Now, what that's meant is that there's been less liquidity in the market, so there's been less sort of free money kicking about, not free money, but liquid money kicking about for banks to borrow, to lend to other people, or to borrow from each other. And what's starting to happen is banks are starting to be a bit reluctant to borrow off each other. Now, what the government have, or the bank, the Fed have, is they have an emergency fund, and apparently over in America the banks have dipped into the emergency fund over in America in the last 2 weeks, and they've borrowed $50 billion. Now, what it's mainly linked to is the government shutdown and the fact that people aren't being paid. Now, if certain number of people aren't being paid in America, there's a good chance that their bills aren't being paid, i.e. their mortgages, their loan repayments, the car finance, and anything such as that. So if them repayments aren't hitting the banks haven't got the money, so they're dipping into the kind of emergency pot. And I think they said something like the emergency pot hasn't been dipped into that much since 2019, 2022 sort of scenario. So we're looking at an emergency situation brewing in America. Now, they've said that the shutdown's going to go into next week. Whether the shutdown can be resolved early next week and people be paid or not, who knows? But apparently the first, obviously, of the month is when a lot of people's loan repayments, car payments, mortgage payments all go out first of the month. So next week we might see more banks dipping into the emergency fund, but we may also see a few banks go under, the smaller banks. If that happens, we might start to see a little bit of a run on the banks, which means there's going to have even less liquidity and less funds available, which means that there's a little bit of a financial storm brewing over in America. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week, and if the emergency fund starts to get depleted even more. Now, Jerome Powell did come out and say that he's going to be stopping the quantitative tightening, which means we might be moving to quantitative easing very soon, which means more liquidity will be injected into the economy in America. Now, whether that's going to be any time imminently, Jerome Powell is a little bit slow in acting, so there's a good chance it's probably not going to be straight away. So you may see a few of the smaller banks in America in trouble next week. It's not really massively reported, but I've seen a number of people talk about it now, so it's obviously widely reported. If you go and search for it, it's a thing that's happening over there. So interesting.